Canadian lawmakers say they are unwilling to lift retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. if President Trump leaves the tariffs on Canada in place. The firm stance comes after President Trump spoke with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau yesterday. The president lashed out on Truth Social after the call, blaming the prime minister for not doing enough to stop drug smuggling along the Canadian border. I spoke with Ontario Premier Doug Ford yesterday, who told me the U.S. should be more concerned with China than his country.
The tone is, nothing's for sure right now, and that's very concerning. As I always say, the only country that's benefiting from this squabble, if you want to call it that way, that is China. As China is flooding markets around the world, undercutting American and Canadian workers, and they're sitting back laughing, watching the two closest friends and allies fight a tariff war.
And you're now taking a live look at the Dow, which, by the way, dropped more than 500 points after the opening bell. All three major indexes rebounded yesterday after 2 down days. So for more on all of this, I want to bring in CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady here live for us inside Studio 55. Kelly, great to see you this morning. A lot to break down. The White House allowed this 1-month exemption, but this only applies to tariffs on cars and car parts. So why the reversal for this particular sector?
So the president spoke with the 3 major automakers in the U.S., so Ford, GM, and Stellantis, and they made the argument that, look, we are going to see reciprocal tariffs go in place on April 2nd. And so basically that means if we tariff, or if they tariff us, we tariff them. And they made the argument that their competitors in the automakers space, so think the European car makers, the Asian car makers, have an advantage during this 1 month if tariffs were to go into place on the American automakers. So that was the argument. I think what's interesting is 1 month doesn't really give them a lot of time to move manufacturing here. So I am curious if they made some concessions of, hey, we are going to build plants in the U.S.
Right.
If that exemption may continue.
Okay. Yeah, pause for 1 month. We'll have to see how this plays out after that. I wonder how the CEOs of some big major American retailers are responding to the possibility or the prospect of increased prices.
So Target CEO came out this week and said, look, you could see prices increase at the grocery store within a few days, right? You can't stockpile your avocados from Mexico. They're going to go bad. I think the other thing that we're seeing is a reaction to consumer spending already dipping these past couple of months. And so you have this thing that's already happening. And I think some of these retailers are looking at the space and saying, well, prices would likely rise if tariffs come into place. We're already seeing a weakened consumer, and that's only going to make things worse.
Yeah, the timing of the pricing adjustment will be something to watch for sure. Also want to ask about tariffs on European goods, because we heard from French President Emmanuel Macron calling them incomprehensible. So could the EU, being a financial adversary, sort of hurt American consumers in some way?
So potentially. I mean, we do a lot of trade with the EU, of course, not as much as we do with China, Canada, Mexico. Those are the big ones right now. But think things like pharmaceuticals, some of those weight loss drugs there's a key component that we get from some of these European countries. Of course, cars as well. If you're a big fan of champagne, that's going to be a tough one because it can only come from that particular area of France.
Right.
But I think it's really more about this broader adversarial stance that the U.S. is taking, not just with the EU, but with China and their neighboring countries.
Right, makes sense. Okay, Kelly O'Grady, thank you for being here. Make it all make sense for us. We appreciate this.
Of course.